Hello there, CJ Miller. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana, across the Red River from beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. And please come see us on your holidays. So, happy Cinco de Mayo. I hope you have a great Cinco de Mayo if it's something that you celebrate. Now, it's literally, you know, as I understand it, not just a celebration of Mexican culture, but Mexican Liberation Day, so to speak. I think that's my understanding of it. It's kind of like our Fourth of July. Anyway, cool. Here's the thing. There's that little trace of, Mexican American uh, in our bloodline going way back that we talk about the Native American part of us, but it's also in that Mexican American, that Spanish uh, American, and German American. It all kind of becomes, the same. As such, there are people on both sides, my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family, who have a very, very rich, uh, darker toned complexion due to those those bits in their bloodline that are you know it's great. Meanwhile, I have the complexion of it's a little bit pink because I get out in the sun every once in a while, but it's very. I'm a very Caucasianary looking person. To the point of if I don't get out in the sun, and I don't go out in the sun a lot, as much as I should, that's why I take vitamin D supplements. But sometimes you can almost look through me. Sometimes I'm like paler than a ghost. And then only the pieces of me that get out into the sun, they get a little red. And I don't. I would say I don't tan very well, but there was a time that I lived in Florida, around Miami, and after a couple of years, 2.5, almost 3 years, I came back home. It's like, wow, you people are all white as hell, and this lovely brown complexion, loved it. Uh, but in short order, uh, I lost that as soon as my skin exfoliated. So anyway, uh, I'm here with my canvas, and I've done some more work on it since we've last visited this, because I really do have a vision of where I wanted to go. Sitting back, waiting to go out. I'd spent the day yesterday with my sister doing some errands and having fun, and then today was Cinco de Mayo, so we went out and we had uh, uh, a Mexican dinner at a Mexican restaurant. We loved it, and then went and picked up a couple of things from the store that we wanted to grab, that was on our list that we didn't get, and then went over, and of course, because Cinco de Mayo, uh, uh, Mexican holiday, we had to go have a cappuccino, which is decidedly an Italian uh, style coffee drinks. But that Italian culture is also Latin culture. I remember, like, somebody was like, it was a TV show or something like that, and somebody had done a TV show back in the 80s or something like that, and they made a comment about, like the Spanish person who was the lead on the show being involved with the male lead of the show, and they were like, and I'm so tired of somebody getting involved with someone who's an Anglo American. I'm like, wait a second, this is an Italian guy. Uh, he's an Italian American of Italian American descent. Uh, that's Latin, the same as Mexican and Puerto Rico culture, they're Latin based. That's not not that anyone cares, but if you're gonna be biased, at least know what you're biased against. But yeah, people get so corny and caught up over stupid stuff. I don't have a problem celebrating uh, another country's holidays as long as it doesn't conflict with anything that I personally believe in. I don't have a problem with it. Uh, Whatever. Anyway, it was a fun holiday. Hope you had a great holiday. This canvas, I spent some time with it as I was waiting uh, to meet up with my sister. And when I decided, and it was almost by accident, that from a distance, and then one of the things that I do also is I look at the canvas through a lens, which gives me a crisper resolution. Uh, and then what I do is I kind of often go in and add some fine detailing to reflect like the some of the crisper edges here that look hyper crisp, maybe a little bit more muted with the naked eye because my eyes don't wear clothes. Well, eyeglasses, But yeah, what I'll potentially do is go in and add contour to bring in the detail. The more contour you add, by the way, in minute amounts, uh, adds detail and brings things forward a little bit and gives clarity and really gifts some perspective to the canvas, if that's what you're working with. So, uh, yeah, I decided to add a little bit of greenery, mossiness around here. This is kind of a wilderness, natural kind of look, and those types of things. Sometimes they have even a subtle bioluminescery, you know, like we have lakes around here, and sometimes there's a reflection, the play of reflection, and then also the play of you know uh, algae or salvia or anything like that. We get that introduced into our areas, and that happens also. And sometimes it's not even wonderfully healthy for pond or lake life. It can snuff out fish. Like, it can change an ecosystem. Sometimes sometimes that those things happen naturally, and but you can tell when they're sort of like when it's not indigenous because it'll end up being accidentally introduced, and then all of a sudden it will just overtake everything. But that may or may not be the case. This could just be some moss growing out there, whatever. Right now, it's kind of nondescript. I'm kind of going to lean to the natural, maybe a little bit more healthy stuff out in the woods. I don't necessarily want to get into a sad story. Although we do have a Lake Bistineau, that we have to keep drained while we're trying to clear out excessive algae to help make it healthier again for aquatic life, in a lake life, Lake Vistanu, whatever, Um, anyway, um, we go out there every November and do a camp out for a few days, and it's usually fun and spiritual, but I miss not having a lake to go sit and watch the water. Uh, But that's cool because my dumb ass, it'd be like right in the middle of the night, and I'd be out there, and I'd probably get bit by a alligator or a snake or something. Yeah. Anyway, uh, as I'm looking across the room, I'm kind of letting the canvas, the lines on the canvas, the natural weaving of the canvas, not to mention the background that I just kind of like painted on and kind of gave let the paint get streaky and etchy. I used like kind of a hard bristle brush to almost, as I was swashing on the background, playing back and forth between the titanium white and the thalio blue, uh, I kind of let the etching happen on the canvas, and that kind of gives kind of a rustic feel all over this canvas, and I like that effect of it. And then so I started out from a perspective of I want to do a wildlife setting. That's what I'm working towards. That's what I want to do. But that's all that I knew. And then from there, as I'm working, then whatever narrative this story is telling, and then it's going to end up being, it's revealing itself as I'm working. I don't have a fully formed story on what this narrative is going to be. That's going to happen the more I work with it. So this is, it's basically expressionism in play. But I started from an idea of a very minimal perspective, and I will show you what I mean by minimal. Minimal would be basically just looking at this V, this shape there, and that kind of gives a focal of where we want to go. And what I'm thinking is, this is the surface of the water, and it's got kind of reflective of the wildlife, and it's going to come around here, and then there's this big rock structure, and there's reflection of it above the surface, and there's going to be a horizon line here, maybe some land will come back and wrap around this bank of tree, and that's why we get a different perspective. And so my goal here is going to be kind of to tell the story, also fill in this negative space here, and make this a really appropriate woodland setting that looks plausible, if not entirely realistic. Then I would have done my job with it. And then to have all this and then have it reflecting on the surface of this water would be completely unjustified if there was just nothing but crystal clear water and nothing over here. It would look so... there would be no continuity to it, to the canvas. Even if this looked completely real in a completely calm, stated way, but over here we have all these colors, even on the still water, because all this busyness up here reflecting on here, it's still almost a still water with the peaceful. There's almost going to be a tranquility to it, and then what's going to tie that together would be how much definition I put into, basically, how many ripples I put along the surface of this water. And there's going to have to be some, My goal here is I'm going to have to take this, turn this into land, but turn this into land that does not take away from the definition of the fact that this is a tree line. So various different tones of natural tones. So that's cool. That's cool. And maybe put a couple of, whatever. And then we want to get to the idea of the sky being, early twilight. So we're going to find ourselves finding a little bit of pinkish, slowly fading into a purple, maybe like a little indigo off of the very top. But not that the transition has gotten far into it. Just the earliest kiss of a twilight is what I'm looking at. A slightly dusk point of day is kind of where I want to go with this. And we're already starting to see various reflections and ripples, and also just letting this water be a little bit rich in color shows us that there's depth in this water. Maybe even starts out being a little shallow up here and transitions from growth to actual, reflectiveness, but not too much disturbance of ripples, very subtle. Maybe I'll put in the occasional uh, circular ripple within the water, like maybe a as if a fish has come up and just like, or a turtle has just come up and like snatched a bug from the surface of the water, how it leaves that little rings of ripples. Maybe I'll do something like that. Uh, but I don't want to overdo it. I want to really kind of get into a nice, you know, uh, a nice story with this. I don't want it to be too much for the eye to look at and have to decipher. Uh, but there's always various nuances in my paintings. There's always a little bit more than just one main focal point. Usually there's two places or three places sometimes you could maybe stare at and you could get some things going on. But very easily I could mess things up if I over expound. I have a tendency when I talk to sometimes over explain myself, and sometimes that happens in my paintings also. So I have to like remember to scale that back. And the tone of the painting matters also. So in doing this, I'm going to make a little demonstration, and I'll make a comparison to Um, just like I want to go see my doctor tomorrow and get a good report on my health because I need that validation for my good health. You know, I want to eventually get some validation as being, somewhat of a creative person with an ability to let that translate to canvas. And so I look at different ways in which to put a story onto the canvas, the same way that you could take a story like, say, Snow White, and you can tell it in a way that is very appropriate for a nursery school storybook, or you can take the same story and you can tell it in a way that is made for a uh, horror movie, very gothic, terrible horror movie, uh, suitable for an R rating or even an NC rating, you know. Um, but let's you know, let me show you what I'm talking about. And the best way to do that is with paper. Hang on. All right, so this is kind of getting into medium detailed expressionism, and uh, and so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to give an example of what I would think minimal. I'm going to tear this first page off. I see a smudge, but on this I'm going to give an example of what I think minimalist work would be, how this would be represented in minimal work. Okay, here we go. So if I were to come here, well, um, say this is my line. There and there. Okay, then I would just maybe come here, bring this down. There you go. And the more solid the line is, great. And then I could come here and basically, and essentially, this is the same story as this. They're both fully complete. In the minimal work, the whole idea is about balance, form, and composition. And here's your focal point. And you can see this is like, it lines up, like, I mean, like, yeah, bring it forward a little bit. So yeah, it almost fits entirely right there. And but with just these lines, of course, without the logo and stuff, you'd be, that's the same story. It is this. It is the nursery, the way a child might, or whatever. The most simple way that you could take this would be basically this is the dimension in which we're going to work within that line. And that's it. That's minimal work, And when they're done right, uh, and very well done, I should say. Uh, Minimal work is quite museum ready. you know, uh, there's that joke about the person that has a big canvas and then like one dot in one area of the canvas, and beautiful, but then like forever and forever and forever, somebody comes in and says, "Hey, that painting, I'm the one that did it. It's my painting, and it's great that it's here, but the problem is it's upside down." So that's the joke. Um, but yeah, so it's a matter of studying perspective. So this is something that happened almost accidentally. When I moved to the new apartment, I didn't bring my stand up, my large wooden easels with me. We were running short on space in the vehicle that we had to move, and we'd already made two or three trips, and we were exhausted. And I had two large canvases, and I didn't bring them with me. So I've been working here, and one of the things is to not let the rougher edges of the top of this canvas get punctured by the wiring in the back. I have a book behind here, uh, a little personal journal or book. And in the natural light of this room, now there is an overhead light, but it's being washed away, washed out by the natural light in the day. What happened? It's kind of gives this image to me of a horizon right there. And I thought, wonderful. What a great way to give perspective, a ratio of earth to sky. For this, I thought about is going to be about 2/3 to 1/3, give or take, with some of the uh, rock or the mountain or whatever coming out of this, uh, this formation atop the water, uh, being a rock and kind of like dominating this part of the canvas, and then these trees and these wood lines, and then maybe with the subtlety of the skies and everything. I thought, what a wonderful ratio, and yeah, it kind of looks all right, and that's when I decided, looking at this, that at first this was going to be just a little bit of water right here, and then all this was going to be uh, land and far perception, perspective, I should say, but uh, land and further perspective, and the changing of the definitions uh, for distance and uh, you know background, medium ground, foreground, that kind of stuff. But it's like this is kind of like this kind of evolves and becomes what it's going to be the more I work on it, and the more clear the narrative gets revealed to me, because sometimes I do feel like uh, what I'm doing is I'm just acting as a conduit to get this image from somewhere uh, through me onto the canvas. Like I don't, like these are not my personal stories, but I know they are. I know they're coming from inside. I know they're in my imagination, and it's little bits that my mind has taken from my life experiences, and kind of putting it into a mash, and it's coming out. But it still feels conductive, uh, nonetheless, uh, and that's kind of how I treat it. And in a way, when other people look at artwork, when they have a chance to do it, be it mine or anybody else's or whatever, how they look at it and how they perceive it is different. And that perception that they have, uh, the energy comes from the canvas, and it goes through the conduit of the person and their mind and how they perceive it, and comes out within their interpretation uh, in a whole different form, such as however the power comes from the power plant comes through my wires in my home, and I turn on a light switch, and uh, it is the result is different depending upon whether I want to turn on a light or toast a piece of bread, you know? So I think that's wonderful. Art is like that. And the artist is a conduit, the work itself is is a conduit, and the person who is receiving the experience of that art is also a conduit, with the final result being how they interpret it. And that's beautiful. And with that, I'm going to bid you all love and light, but not just yet. First, I'm going to talk about going to my doctor tomorrow. I care. I want validation from my doctor in the same way that I want validation for being able to do uh, good artwork eventually. I work on it. I'll practice. And the reason why is this is an example of healthy ego. You know, uh, you know, fear driven ego exacerbated, and it's unhealthy, and can have people arguing over stupid things that they normally wouldn't argue over, uh, basically over misplaced pride. Uh, but there is a such thing as a healthy ego that lets us know, hey, when we do healthy things like have a healthier diet, maybe we've done a little bit more with our physical health, and we've done things that are good for ourselves and for other people and everything like that. And then we get uh, that word from the doctor, hey, things are working well for you. Then uh, that's kind of good, you know. And that is a healthy. That's an example of having a healthy ego, you know, versus the unhealthy ego, which feels shallow and seeks approval, sometimes from the wrong influences. And, you know, that's why we'll find ourselves sometimes in uh, domestic situations, and we'll stay in it because you know, whatever the negative story is, the bad ego will be vulnerable to you know, unhealthy decisions and feeling entrapped, versus a healthy ego is empowering and should be edifying, and it should be about you can do this versus you got to stay in this because you can't do this. So in whatever way that you need that kind of empowerment, you know, that's what I wish for everybody. But these are the types of thoughts that uh, you know, can come from like just studying uh, art and working, and the tranquility of, oh, I get this release from my daily irritations of whatever might be going on. So there's a serenity and a calmness, and then as I'm thinking and I experience some sort of clarity or whatever, then I can think about healthy thoughts and experience, you know, a healthy pride and healthy ego and anticipation of doing good things and getting a good word from my doctor, and then finding out upon that, oh, by the way, that is an example of a healthy ego. Having an ego is not always a bad thing. Having an unhealthy ego usually leads someone like me to bad or unhealthy decisions. So, with that, for anyone who wants to consider, I now will leave this and bid you uh, farewell, good night, and love and light. Peace.